Okay, let's pick this right up where we left off. This is Photoshop Camera Raw Filter. Okay, we're applying it to a smart object. So let me just show you how that smart object works. If we took the vignetting and made it like that, okay, so it does that to it, but you can see it's a smart filter. So not only can we mask it out like this, like I can mask out that filter and how it applies using this mask right here. Turn the opacity up. Okay, so that masks out the effect of the filter, but also I can just turn it off like this, and I can also go back into it by clicking on the camera raw filter right here. Okay, so if I want to turn, let's say that vignetting effect is way too much, put it back to 0, and boom, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. And we'll do it again. So that's the beauty of a smart object. If I did all that on this background layer, on a regular layer, then it would just be burnt in. I wouldn't be able to mask it. I wouldn't be able to go back into it. It would just be burnt into that layer. Okay, so that's the advantage of a smart object in this case. So we're just kind of using a smart object in that way, not to its full capabilities, but just in order to get that smart filter. And I like that because the camera raw filter has all the adjustments that I need all built into it, but I don't want to just burn those all in. I like having a non-destructive workflow where I can go back to it and adjust certain things. So that's how I use the smart object in this case. So let's just look at the basic adjustments that can be done. We can do more temperature control in here, and it's just like the Vray frame buffer, right? But we had it right in the Vray frame buffer, so we don't need to adjust it here. We have a tint we can do to either magenta or green. Okay, and then there's exposure settings, just again, like the Vray frame buffer. That's actually pretty nice. We could have done this in there too. The highlights, see it's blowing out. This is like that white cutoff, like in Vray frame buffer. Okay, so we can do all that. In fact, I kind of want to do some of this. There's nice like texture. It adds, it's almost like the sharpening radius in the Vray frame buffer. It's adding a lot of texture. I mean, there's no words to describe it. You can see it happening here in real time. And when you take out the texture, then it looks all kind of blurry. But you want to be just careful with this. That's all. And clarity is the same. Okay, you can just tweak those and make them look how you want them to, but go easy on them. Don't go too crazy because it can look real fake real fast. And dehaze does exactly what you would think it does. It either adds haze or gets rid of haze. The effect isn't working. It's faking the effect. It's not like it's a real Z-depth channel or something like that. But it works pretty well. In this particular rendering, the effect isn't very good. But you can see it does dehaze back there. Okay, I'm not going to use any of that. The things that I really like here is the curve that isn't affected by dots, but is affected by sliders. And that's cool because you can see it's affecting just that part of the curve. And you can do kind of the highlights, the lights, the darks, and the shadows all separately. So it's really just affecting different parts of the curve. So the shadows would be here, the darks would be here, the lights would be here, and the highlights would be here. And you can just use sliders to adjust that curve. Okay, so get that right where you want it. I think the overall exposure is a little too bright here, right? One of the coolest things that it has in here is the color mixer, and I will say, let's not just skip over detail. We can do more sharpening just like we can in the Vray frame buffer here. The color mixer is one of the things I use more often. So say I didn't like the color of this blue here, then I could go into the adjust, and I can just leave it on HSL. Hue, saturation, and lightness, is that what it is? Oh, hue, saturation, and luminance, there you go. If you go to color, yeah, it just goes by color. I like this hue, saturation, luminance. And you can go into each different one of those, right? You can either do all at the same time, or you can go into each one individually, which gives you the most power overall. So I'm just looking at kind of this blue and kind of purplish area, and I want it to be maybe less purple. So maybe if I take the purples and change the hue of them to be more like that, yeah. Okay, so you can see purple, blue. And then the blues I want to make more kind of turquoisey instead of towards magenta like that. Okay, so it's here and here that's really being affected by that. Let's say the yellows, I want to put them more, it's really affecting out here in these plants. I want to put them more orange or more green. I don't like them green, so I think these ones should just stay right where they are. They're getting that warm sun from outside. This area I kind of maybe want to make a little less warm, and that looks like it's in the orange range. But when you put it yellow, we're getting some things messed up here. That's not what I wanted. Maybe it's this one, it's the red. Taking a little less red out of that and putting it more towards orange. I kind of like, if it's all the way in red, it's looking a little bit pink. Very, very subtle adjustments there. With the saturation, you can do the same thing. So, like if I'm thinking it's too red up here, then I can just take the red out of the ceiling. I actually kind of like that. The yellows, when I take that out, you can see that those plants outside are getting completely desaturated. I kind of like it more saturated like that. The oranges, we are definitely needing the oranges to have saturation in here. Okay, the blues, maybe we could afford to go down a little bit. I actually like it more. Okay, and the luminance is the final thing where you can just turn up and down the lightness of something. This obviously can get you into some trouble pretty quickly and start getting things looking really weird like that, right? Because we're trying to push things too far. Okay, but if you see specific areas that you think, oh, that color just doesn't look right, then this is a good way to go in and adjust and enhance. Okay, another thing I use a lot is vignetting. Obviously, we know what vignetting is. And here we can kind of, I mean, this will burn it in, but there you go. That's helping us focus more in this area. And maybe now that I'm looking at this, another option with this view would be to focus on that woman there and blur everything in the foreground. In this case, we're looking more at these stools and the computer, but that's the beauty of depth of field, right? Okay, so the final thing that I like to do in here, I mean, there's a lot of settings in here. We won't go over every one of them, but the final thing in here is to add a color profile. Okay, so maybe we do these adjustments and burn them in, or just accept them basically as our settings. And that does look like that is an improvement to my eye. Okay, turn them on and off. Yeah, that looks better. But there's another thing we can do. If we just jump this to a new layer, Control J, and we can do another raw filter, then I'll show you something else we can do. So if we go into this camera raw filter here, and then up here we can do these color profiles. And if we go to browse, we can go to artistic. It gives us all these different color profiles. And it's like applying a lookup table, an LUT, to your scene. Or, I mean, you can think of it as an Instagram filter. Okay, it's shifting the colors to try and make it look more interesting. So you can see what it's doing here. Like, this is shifting it towards more pink and magenta. This is more orangey red. This is the one I like for this because it's accentuating the blue versus yellow. Okay, and that's kind of cool in this case. I like that. This one's a very warm one. Okay, so you can just go through here and look at these. And then there's black and white ones. That's actually pretty cool, but black and white is not the look we're going for here. Ton of different black and white ones. You can see, even though there's no color, you can get different tones that really make it look different. The modern and the artistic ones are the ones I use the most. Okay, so this is just shifting color. That one looks pretty good too, Modern 6. That one looks kind of good if you're going for a different kind of look where your blacks are not pure black, right? That's definitely like an Instagram look. So like I said, this is like Instagram filters for Photoshop. Kind of funny. But it's cool. Like, I mean, it can give you a different feel for your rendering. So I like this Modern 10 one. This is cool. Okay, so the difference here is subtle. It's kind of lightening up my blacks to be not pure black. It's deepening some of those blues. I kind of like it. Okay, so you could set this to affect only the color. and turn the opacity up and down. Actually, if I only affect color, it's not doing anything. I need it on normal. But I can turn the opacity up and down of that effect. I can also mask it out. So if I like some parts of it with this new color adjustment on it and some parts of it without, then I could mask out elements of it. So like this part looks normal and the edges look with the new, or I could invert that like that. Okay, so there's a lot of different things you could do, but really I just wanted to show you that this camera raw filter kind of has everything all encompassing in one filter. Kind of everything you need, unless you need to go in and paint custom things on top of this, which I've shown before too, but I think if you get it close enough in Vray, then really all you need to do is some simple, quick camera raw adjustments and you should be good. And then you can put like a color adjustment filter on it or a lookup table adjustment on it just to shift the colors to what you want it to be. Okay, so that's all that's really needed here because we got it really close to something realistic in Vray. So if you want slight enhancements, you can bring it in here and do a camera raw on it. The difference from the beginning is this, which is kind of pinky purpley, to this. It's kind of got these color harmonies between blue and brownish yellow going on, which is cool because it matches our couch and our cabinets, right? Okay, so I like it. We'll leave it at that. That's how we can do some simple post-processing.